They say family is where the heart is, but sometimes it's where the bruises hide best quiet and invisible. My name's Ethan, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one sitting slightly off-center in every family photo, present but never included, helpful but never quite belonging. The one they nodded at when the bills were paid but ignored when the jokes were shared. I wasn't born rich. Far from it. My parents, Margaret and George, scraped by in a modest apartment in the city's outskirts. Things were tight growing up, and I learned quickly that success wasn't a luxury, it was an escape. I worked hard. No shortcuts, no excuses. I earned my spot in one of the top financial firms by 27, bought my first condo by 29, and by 33 I had what I thought was everything. Stability, options, respect. But not from them. Not from my mother, who adored my sister Samantha like she hung the stars. Sam could crash a car, miss a mortgage payment, or burn dinner 3 nights in a row and still be just under stress. Not from my father, George, who always kept his gaze just a few inches to the left. When I spoke like if he didn't lock eyes, I wouldn't ask him to choose. And not from Luke, my younger brother, whose specialty was vanishing for weeks and showing up just in time for rent day. Every time his name lit up my phone, it meant one thing: "Hey man, you got me." And I always did. I always had them. Every holiday I brought the best wine. Every birthday I covered the bill. And every single month, like clockwork, I sent money home. No questions asked. They never said thank you, but I never really needed them to. Or at least, I thought I didn't until the night that proved just how disposable I really was. The evening was typical in the way holidays tend to be forced smiles under soft lighting, too many people in too little space, the air thick with cranberry-scented nostalgia and silent judgments. We were gathered at my parents' penthouse in the city. Margaret had outdone herself again. Glistening silverware, overcooked turkey, and that anxious energy she wore like perfume whenever I was around. Luke was glued to his phone, probably checking crypto prices he didn't understand. Samantha was swirling her wine like she owned a vineyard, tossing side eyes like appetizers. I leaned back in my chair, exhaled slowly, and offered what I thought was a cheerful comment. "I can't wait for the reunion tomorrow. It'll be nice to see everyone again." Silence. For just a moment. Then Luke chuckled under his breath, and Samantha's smirk curled like smoke. "The reunion was yesterday," she said casually, like announcing the weather. I blinked. "What?" She sipped her wine with a practiced elegance. "Yeah, yesterday. Didn't Mum tell you?" I turned to Margaret. She shrugged, slicing into her pie as if nothing was off. "Oops, must have gotten the dates mixed up." Mixed up? I wasn't some distant cousin living abroad. I was here, sitting at the same table, in the same room, just one day too late for a moment that was supposed to include me. Uncle Paul, my father's younger brother, and the only one with a halfway functional moral compass, pulled out his phone, silently, and held it up. A photo. Everyone was in it. Everyone but me. George. Margaret, Samantha, Luke, cousins, uncles, kids running around in coordinated sweaters. Even Grandma in her oxygen chair somehow managed to show up. They were all smiling like it was a toothpaste commercial. I stared at the image for a long second, and something cold spread through my chest. Not pain exactly. Not even anger. Clarity. They had planned it, scheduled it, coordinated a whole reunion and removed one name from the list, mine. Luke grinned and said, "Damn, that's awkward." Samantha let out a quiet, satisfied laugh. Guess someone forgot to hit send. And that was the moment it clicked. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a forgotten invite or an email lost in spam. It was a statement. I didn't belong. Not really. Not when the smiles were real. Not when the cameras were out. I was the wallet, the fallback plan, the invisible limb. I stood up. No scene, no drama, just me and my coat. The wind outside was sharp, slicing through the seams of my jacket. I welcomed it. Let it burn, I thought. Let it stay. I wanted to remember this feeling. Cold, yes, but honest. Unlike everything inside that apartment, after a few minutes I walked back in, quietly, as if nothing had happened, because I wanted to see just how far they'd take it. When I stepped back into the apartment, the air felt heavier. Not because anything had changed, it hadn't. Laughter still floated through the rooms, the clink of glasses, the low hum of conversation. My absence, however brief, hadn't registered as anything more than an intermission. I hung my coat neatly. No slam, no huff. I wanted them to remember me this way, composed, contained, and absolutely finished. I returned to the dining room and pulled out my chair. No one looked up, not really. Samantha raised an eyebrow, a single lazy lift, like I was the punchline in a joke she was already over. "Thought you left," she said, lips curled in mock concern. I met her gaze evenly. "Why would I leave? It was just a silly mistake, right?" Her smile grew tighter. "Of course, just a little mix-up." Luke chuckled, fork halfway to his mouth. "You're taking this way too seriously, man. It's not like we meant to forget you." I leaned back in my chair and scanned the table. A full reunion takes planning. You coordinated food, booked a venue, arranged rides for Grandma, right? I paused, and not one of you remembered to send a text. They looked everywhere but at me. Margaret reached for the wine, like she was suddenly parched. George cleared his throat but stayed fixed on his plate. "Ethan," Margaret said with a heavy sigh, "let's not ruin the evening over a misunderstanding. It's the holidays. Be gracious." Gracious. That word clanged against my skull like a warning bell. I had been gracious for 33 years. Gracious when Luke failed to pay back loans. Gracious when Samantha guilt tripped me into just covering rent this once. Gracious when Margaret told people I was distant for moving across town, when in truth, I just wanted peace. I tapped my fork against the edge of my plate, then set it down gently. "I've been thinking," I said casually, "about the money I send each month." That got their attention. Samantha sat up. Margaret froze mid-sip. Even George, eternally silent, blinked slowly like his brain had finally booted up. Luke laughed nervously. "What about it?" I tilted my head slightly. "I pay your rent when you fall behind," I said to Samantha. "I cover medical expenses for Mom and Dad. I even float Luke some cash when he needs a little extra for whatever it is he does." There was silence. Then Samantha forced a laugh, a note too high. "Come on, Ethan, you're not really upset about this, are you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Luke scoffed. "You've got a great job, a killer apartment, a nice life. You don't need a family reunion. We didn't think it matter." There it was. The resentment, the entitlement bubbling under years of thin politeness. "You're right," I said. "I do have a great life. One I built, alone." Samantha leaned forward. "Don't be petty." I smiled, calm, cold. "Petty? Like throwing a reunion and forgetting to invite your own brother?" Luke rolled his eyes. "God, you're being dramatic. You always make things about you." "Maybe we didn't invite you because we didn't want the drama." I let the words land. No reaction, no flinch. Just let them hang in the air like cigarette smoke. "Then I guess," I said, "you won't have to deal with it anymore." Margaret's face twitched. George finally looked up from his plate. "What does that mean?" Margaret asked. I folded my napkin and placed it neatly on the table. It means this bank account is closed. Samantha paled. Wait, you're cutting us off? Seriously? Luke gave a sharp, sarcastic laugh. Yeah, okay. Sure. You're too soft for that. You'd never actually do it. I looked at him for a long time. Wouldn't I? The smirk slipped from his face. The room shifted, a collective inhale. Margaret's fingers curled around her wineglass like it was the only thing tethering her to the moment. Ethan, she said slowly, sweetly, we love you. Don't let a small misunderstanding ruin that. She reached across the table, rested her hand over mine. It took everything in me not to pull away immediately. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. I looked at her hand. Perfect nails, perfect timing, perfect manipulation. You love what I do for you, I said. You love the financial cushion, the guilt-free shopping, the freedom to live irresponsibly because you know I'll cover it. George shifted uncomfortably. That's not fair. It's accurate, I interrupted. And maybe that's the problem. You all forgot one thing. I don't owe you anything. Luke snorted. Jesus, you sound like a therapist. Are you going to light a candle and talk about boundaries next? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. No. I'm going to watch you figure out what adulthood looks like without me footing the bill. Margaret stood, her voice cracking. Don't be rash. We're family. I stood too. You turned your backs on me a long time ago. You just didn't think I'd ever walk away. And with that, I grabbed my coat again. Luke's voice followed me down the hallway. You'll regret this. I paused, hand on the door. Enjoy the shoes, I said without turning, and stepped into the cold. This time, I didn't plan to come back. I didn't check my phone for the first hour after I left. I just drove. City lights blurred past my window like a slow strobe, comforting in their indifference. No judgment, no guilt trips. Just the rhythm of traffic and a warmth in my chest I hadn't felt in years. Freedom has a strange weight to it, heavy at first, like your shoulders don't quite trust it yet. But once it settles, it's quiet, whole. I got home, made tea, turned on a playlist that didn't remind me of anyone, and finally looked at my phone. 7 missed calls. 3 voicemails from Margaret. 2 from Samantha. 1 each from George and Luke. And then came the texts. Samantha, okay, very funny, you made your point. Can you just send the money now? Margaret, Ethan, be reasonable. This isn't you. George, call your mother. I muted the thread, finished my tea, and smiled. They'd gotten used to a version of me that bent every time they leaned. It was fascinating watching what happened when I didn't. I woke the next morning to even more messages. Luke, bro, serious question, are you actually not sending anything this month? Luke again, like, be real. My card is about to overdraft. Then, come on, man. This isn't the time to prove a point. By noon, the desperation had lost its polish. I already ordered a new laptop and a PS5. Thought I'd have your transfer by now. I need it before midnight, or I'm screwed. Also, it wasn't just the shoes. I might have also got a TV. You always help. I counted on it. There it was. The truth behind the smirks and digs and backhanded compliments. They weren't just ungrateful, they were dependent. They'd built lifestyles on a foundation they didn't respect but fully expected to stay. I waited. Just like that, the narrative started to shift. Margaret sent a message full of emotional landmines. You're not a cruel person. Don't punish your brother like this. Samantha tried the manipulative route. You're being dramatic. He's family. He's panicking. And Luke, he dropped the pride. Rachel, please wait, Ethan, sorry. Auto correct. Please help. Just this once. I laughed out loud. For the first time in years, I felt light. There was no fight, no debate, just silence from my end and noise from theirs. Then came the threat. Luke, if you don't send it tonight, I'll come to your place. We need to talk. I'm serious. That was the moment I stopped smiling. I stared at the message, then at the door, then back at the screen. He really didn't get it. I didn't respond. An hour later, my buzzer rang. I knew it would be him before I checked. There he was. Hoodie pulled over his head, dark circles under his eyes, looking like someone who hadn't slept, not from guilt, but from consequence. I opened the door and let the silence do the work. "We need to talk," he said, trying to sound calm, but his voice cracked halfway through. I didn't move. "About what?" "About you not sending the transfer. I'm about to get hit with late fees. I messed up, okay?" I crossed my arms. "You made purchases without the money to cover them because you assumed I'd bail you out. That's not a mistake, Luke. That's a habit." He ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't think you'd actually follow through. You're usually just, I don't know, nice." "I was never nice," I said. "I was just quiet. There's a difference." "So, you're really not going to help me?" he asked, jaw tightening. "No." He let out a bitter laugh. "God, you think you're better than all of us now, huh? Just because you have money?" "No," I replied calmly. "I just don't think I should fund people who would deliberately hurt me." "It was one party. It was one final straw," I corrected. He stepped closer. "You think cutting us off makes you strong? It just makes you selfish. You always needed to buy your way into the family anyway." I tilted my head. "Maybe. But you all cashed those checks with zero hesitation, didn't you?" He was fuming now, trying to find a word that would land hard enough to reverse time, but he had nothing left but venom. "You'll regret this," he said. I nodded. "Maybe. But at least it'll be my regret, not a debt collector's." He stormed off, muttering something I didn't care enough to hear. I didn't watch him go. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against the frame for a long, still breath. That was the last knock I ever answered from him. The day after Luke showed up at my door, my phone was a battlefield. Margaret tried the guilt route. Again. "He's your brother, Ethan. This isn't who we raised you to be." George, always the echo, sent a single line. "Talk to your mother." Samantha, predictably dramatic. "He's spiraling. You made your point. Just help him." But it wasn't about a point anymore. It never really had been. It was about a boundary that should have been drawn years ago. I just happened to find the pen last week. I didn't reply. It wasn't stubbornness. It was peace. I was done being the net they flung themselves into while calling me selfish midair. A week passed. And another. Silence. The kind I used to fear. The kind I once equated with punishment, with distance, with abandonment. But this silence was earned. It was mine. No strings attached. No ringtones loaded with expectation. Just me. My space. My music. My breath. I didn't think about them much, not out of spite, but because my mind finally had room for other things. I started reading again. I started sleeping deeper. I cleaned out my inbox, unsubscribed from nonsense, and cooked dinner for one without feeling alone. Then, one night, my phone lit up. "Luke, I messed up. I don't know what to do. Please help." I stared at the message for a long minute. No anger, no satisfaction, just stillness. I deleted it without responding. Because I wasn't mad anymore. I was just done. And in that moment, I realized that done isn't loud. It's not fireworks or slamming doors. It's not a final scream or a dramatic monologue. It's quiet, steady, soft. It's a dinner you cook for yourself without resentment. It's a walk you take without looking at your phone. It's the weight that doesn't sit on your chest when you wake up. A few days later, another message from Margaret. Luke is furious. What did you say to him? I didn't answer that one either. I sent one final message to the family group chat, the same one that used to be filled with requests, excuses, and passive-aggressive emoji chains. I'm done. Don't ever ask me for money again. Then I muted the chat. I sat back, folded my arms, and took in the quiet like it was music. Because for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't orbiting someone else's chaos. I wasn't the patch, the peacekeeper, the emergency fund. I wasn't waiting for the next crisis they expected me to fix. I was just a man in his apartment, drinking coffee without a single notification demanding anything from him. They didn't reach out again, not for a while. And maybe that was the most honest thing they'd ever done, disappear when the cash dried up. Because love, real love, doesn't need a receipt. I'd always known I didn't fit in my family. What I hadn't realised was that I didn't need to. I used to envy people who had tight-knit families. I thought maybe I was doing something wrong, too cold, too distant, too me. But the truth is I wasn't lacking love. I just kept trying to harvest it in a place where it never grew, so I stopped planting. Instead, I started watering other parts of my life. Friendships that had long been sidelined, mentorships at work, weekly lunches with a neighbour who always invited me but never got a yes until now. I wasn't rebuilding from scratch. I was just building better. And strangely enough, it wasn't dramatic or cinematic. There was no big celebration, no final showdown, just a series of small, consistent choices that added up to something solid. Luke never apologised. Samantha never admitted fault. Margaret never acknowledged what she'd done. But I didn't need any of them to, because I didn't want revenge. I didn't want them to suffer or beg or even change. I just wanted them out of my peace. And I got that, one choice at a time. Final reflection, they say family is forever. Maybe that's true. Maybe some ties never fully sever, but mine were already threadbare. I just stopped pretending they held any weight. And when I finally let go, when I stopped showing up, stopped explaining, stopped financing something unexpected happened, I became free, not rich, not cold, not victorious, just free. And that was the real inheritance I'd been waiting for all along. Story 2, I'm 42 now, but this all started more than 2 decades ago. Back then, I never imagined I'd end up raising someone else's kids, especially not my younger sister's. Her name's Morgan, 40 now. We were never close. Even as kids, she always had this I'm better than you air about her. While I was the quiet one who preferred books and art, she was the type who'd roll her eyes if I wore the same shoes 2 days in a row. The kind of sibling who made everything into a competition except I wasn't playing. We officially drifted after high school. I stayed local for college. She moved in with her rich boyfriend at 18, convinced she was destined for more glamorous things than lectures and student loans. And to be fair, for a minute, it looked like she was right. Fancy apartment, constant shopping hauls, nights out at 19, while I was buried in textbooks and side gigs. By 21, she had twin daughters. A year later, a son. No job, no degree, no plan. I remember our mum's face when she got the news, proud but anxious. Our dad just said, well, it's her life. They offered to help, financially and emotionally, but Morgan made it clear she didn't need advice, just support, meaning cash. Then the boyfriend dipped, caught cheating. He handed over some child support, signed away parental rights, and disappeared from the picture like smoke. Morgan was suddenly a single mom to 3 toddlers, broke and bitter. Despite our strained history, I helped. I wasn't swimming in money, but I had a decent job, no kids of my own, and a conscience I couldn't ignore. Our parents pitched in too. Between the three of us, we kept Morgan and her kids afloat for a while. She tried working, but without a degree or experience, the best she could get were low-wage jobs with unpredictable hours. Babysitters were expensive, and she burned bridges fast with anyone who tried to help. Eventually, I was her only fallback. I'd swing by to babysit when I could. Not for her god, no, but for the kids. Olivia and Lila the twins, and Max. They were sweet, shy, and way too quiet for their age. I started seeing things. Not bruises, but scars of a different kind. Fear when their mum raised her voice. Flinches when she made sudden movements. That kind of stuff. They walked on eggshells around her. Morgan didn't hit them, nothing that would get CPS involved. But she broke them down with words. Every failed date? Their fault. Every job she didn't get? Because she had to deal with them. She'd say things like, "You're the reason no man wants me," or "I should have left you with your deadbeat dad." And they believed her. I wanted to do more, but my hands were tied. She was their legal guardian. As long as they weren't physically neglected, there wasn't much I could do. So I did what I could. Listened, showed up, bought groceries, helped with school supplies. I was the emergency contact on all their forms. I was their person. By the time the twins were 16, they started staying at my place more often than their mums. Max followed soon after. They called it crashing at Aunt Nora's, but we all knew the truth. Morgan didn't even protest much. She acted like she was doing me a favour. Then, the day they turned 18, they officially moved in. No more pretending, no more excuses, no more Morgan. She was livid, said I stole them. That I waited until the hard part was over, just so I could play mummy. I wanted to scream, "You didn't raise them, survival did." But I bit my tongue. She was hurting, I got that. But the only person she had to blame was the one in the mirror. The kids, well, adults now flourished once they left that house. Max got into med school. Lila started a teaching degree. Olivia opened a hair studio. I co-signed the lease and helped with loans. Nothing major, just enough to get them on their feet. They did the rest. For 4 years, they lived with me between semesters. But honestly, it wasn't really with me. They had classes, internships, side hustles. They were building lives. Eventually, they moved out, each into their own place. Independent, capable, kind. I'm not exaggerating when I say they're 3 of the best people I know. And for a while, that was that. Morgan disappeared completely. No contact with me, the kids, or even our parents. I didn't go looking. Neither did they. The silence was a blessing. Then came my 41st birthday. Max threw a surprise dinner, nothing flashy, just close friends and family. The kids all showed up. And after the cake, they handed me an envelope. Inside, a check, a large one. They had pooled their money. They called it a token. Said I gave them everything: stability, safety, love. And they wanted to give back. I tried to refuse. Swear I did. But they wouldn't hear it. "This isn't debt," Olivia said. "This is love, Aunt Nora." I cried. Ugly cried. That night, I posted a photo of the 3 of them smiling, grown, free, and captioned it with a thank you. I mentioned the check, not the amount, not the details. Just a note about how proud I was. It wasn't public, just a few friends. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't expect it to go anywhere. But somehow, Morgan saw it, and that's where things took a turn. It started with a message from Morgan, the first one in over 6 years. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe she sent it to the wrong person, or maybe I was reading too much into it. But nope, it was definitely for me. And she was definitely fishing. "Hey Nora, I saw your post. Looks like the kids are doing well." I was hoping we could talk. Short, suspiciously polite, almost like she was trying to seem maternal. I didn't reply, not because I wanted to be cold, but because I knew exactly what this was. I've known my sister a long time, long enough to recognize when she's trying to act like she cares, when really she's calculating her next move. The next day she called. I answered. Probably shouldn't have, but I did. And wow, she didn't waste time. Listen, I know things weren't perfect when they were growing up. I didn't always make the best choices, okay? But I've had time to think. I want a relationship with my kids again. I miss them. Right, now she missed them. Not when they were scared of her. Not when they moved out. Not when they graduated. Not when Max started med school, or when Lila got her first teaching job, or when Olivia opened her salon. No, now that she knew they were doing well. I kept quiet for a second, just letting her talk. She kept going. I figured you could talk to them. I know they still listen to you. That's when I lost it. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. But I told her exactly what I thought. You don't miss them. You miss their bank accounts. If this was really about reconnecting, you would have reached out years ago when they left. Not now, just because you realized they're successful. She gasped like I slapped her. That's insulting, she said. You think I care about their money? No, I replied. I know you do. She went quiet. Then she said the thing that made my blood boil. You stole them from me. You took my kids, and now you're taking what's mine. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. What's yours, Morgan? You mean the kids you neglected? The ones you guilt-tripped and emotionally crushed every time they smiled too loudly? You think you're owed something now? She tried to argue, but I cut her off. Let me be clear. They are not yours. Not anymore. You made your choices. You had your shot. And now you're not entitled to a damn thing. She hung up. I figured that was the end of it. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The fallout started slowly. Cousin Jenna messaged me out of the blue, saying she heard I was refusing to let Morgan reconnect with her children. Then an uncle I hadn't spoken to in years sent me a long paragraph about how families should forgive. I was confused until I checked Facebook. Morgan had posted a status. Long, dramatic, vague, but pointed. The kind that was written to stir up pity without giving details. Something about having her children stolen and watching someone else reap the rewards after doing all the hard work. It was full of half-truths and performative sadness. People were eating it up. Heart reacts. You're so strong comments. A few people asking for context, but most just taking her side blindly. I didn't respond publicly. I don't like drama, never have. But the messages kept coming. Even some extended family started side-eyeing me at gatherings, making little digs like, it's a shame how some people hold grudges forever. So I sat the kids down, told them everything. The post, the messages, the phone call. I didn't want them to feel obligated to defend me, but I wanted them to hear it from me first, just in case Morgan decided to reach out to them directly. They were quiet for a minute. Then Max leaned back and said, "She really thinks she can pop back into our lives because we're doing okay." Lila shook her head. She only calls when she wants something. Olivia didn't say much. She was just staring at her phone. A few seconds later, I saw her open Facebook. Then I saw the same status Morgan had posted, except now there was a comment underneath it. From Olivia, "Funny how you suddenly care after 6 years of radio silence. We're doing fine. Stay out of our lives." And that was just the beginning. Max and Lila jumped in too. All three of them laid it out calmly, clearly, brutally. No yelling, no name calling, just facts, memories, receipts. They talked about the times she'd scream at them for needing lunch money. The nights she came home late and too drunk to notice Max had a fever. The time Lila won a writing contest and Morgan threw the trophy in the trash because who cares about stupid poems? The comment section turned real fast. Suddenly, the heart reacts stopped. The pity comments faded. People started asking questions. Some even apologized to me in private messages for jumping to conclusions. Morgan deleted the post a few hours later, but it was too late. Screenshots had been taken, and people had already seen the truth. I don't know what she expected, a second chance, a payday, a redemption arc where the kids come running back with open arms. Whatever it was, it didn't happen. And after that, she disappeared again, blocked me, blocked the kids, probably out there telling some new version of the story to anyone who'll listen. But this time, we're not staying silent. I didn't take her kids. I showed up when she wouldn't. I didn't steal anything. I built a home for them when hers was falling apart. And now, they're thriving. Not because of me, but because they're strong, resilient, kind people who chose not to become bitter like their mother. That check they gave me, I haven't cashed it. It's still sitting in my drawer. Not because I don't appreciate it, but because the real reward is this peace, and no amount of money can top that. A week after Morgan's meltdown on Facebook, I thought that was it. She'd gone quiet again, and honestly, I welcomed it. I'd already made peace with the silence years ago. It was familiar, calm, predictable, and frankly, way better than the chaos she brought every time she popped up. But Morgan, she wasn't quite done. 3 days later, she crawled back into the comment section on Olivia's post, this time trying a different angle. "I'm just trying to heal," she wrote. "I've made mistakes, but no one is perfect. I don't deserve this kind of public shaming." Olivia didn't respond right away. "Max did. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices. There's a difference." That one hit hard. Then Lila chimed in. "Don't call it healing if the only reason you showed up is because you saw money." A few hours later, Morgan deleted her comments, then blocked all 3 of them. Again. It was like watching someone flip a table, realize nobody cared, and then walk away pretending they were the victim. Honestly, it was almost pathetic. She even tried messaging me again. This time, it was a voice message. 1 minute and 20 seconds of tears, guilt-tripping and twisting the story like she was rewriting it in real time. The last thing she said? "I hope you're happy. You've turned my kids against me. Everyone hates me now." I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? That I was sorry she lost something she never tried to keep? That I should have pretended her version of reality was true? No, you don't get to light a house on fire and complain about the smoke. So I let the silence speak for me. After all that, I posted my own version of the story online. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet breakdown of what actually happened so people could stop hearing only her side. I kept it respectful, honest. Just the facts. How she checked out the moment parenting got hard. How she blamed her kids for every failed relationship, every missed opportunity. How she disappeared for 6 years, no calls, no birthdays, no effort. And how the only time she suddenly missed them was after seeing they were successful without her. I didn't expect much, just wanted the record set straight. But the response surprised me. People, family, friends, even strangers started reaching out. Some apologized for judging. Some shared their own stories. And others simply said, "Thank you for saying it out loud. It felt good." Not in a vindictive way, more like relief. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't wrong, and I wasn't alone. As for the kids, man, they amaze me. Max is in his residency now, tired all the time, but happy. Lila just published her first piece in a literary journal, Olivia's Salon, booked solid for weeks. We still have Sunday dinners when we can, though everyone's schedules are packed now. It's not about living under one roof anymore. It's about showing up, being there, even when life gets busy. They still call me Aunt Nora, but sometimes they slip and say, Mum. They always catch themselves look a little embarrassed, but I never correct them. I just smile, because the truth is, I kind of am. Not by blood, not by birth, but by choice, by love, by showing up. I did eventually cash the check they gave me, not because I needed the money, but because they asked me to use it for myself for once. So I booked a trip, quiet little place by the lake. Just me, a stack of books, and a couple mornings where the only sound was wind in the trees. The peace? Unmatched. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself rest, not out of exhaustion, but out of contentment, because I don't need anything from Morgan, not an apology, not recognition, definitely not forgiveness. And she doesn't need anything from us either. That chapter's closed, and it's staying closed. People always say family is forever, but sometimes forever is just long enough to learn how to let go. And that's okay, because the family I have now, we built this one ourselves, brick by brick. No borrowed love, no guilt strings, no conditions, just trust. And that's enough, more than enough, always has been. Story 3. So where do I even start? I guess with this. I'm 34 and 3 months pregnant. My name's Marissa. After 3 agonizing years of failed IVF cycles, heartbreak, and more tears than I care to admit, my husband and I finally got the miracle we'd been praying for. We told our parents a month ago quietly, just us and them. No Instagram-worthy announcements, no ultrasound photos pinned to the fridge. I didn't want to jinx it. After everything we went through, I was scared to even say the word pregnant out loud, which brings me to last weekend. My younger sister Natalie, she's 30 through this big engagement bash. She's always been a lot. You know, the type spotlight addict, drama enthusiast, center stage or bust. Birthdays, hers. Holidays, somehow still hers. Someone else's promotion. Give her 5 minutes and she'll twist the conversation until it's about her job, her boyfriend, her dog's new trick. I spent most of my life stepping aside for her. Honestly, it was easier than fighting. So, when it came to her engagement party, I knew to keep a low profile. I wore a flowy black dress, nothing remotely form-fitting. I planned to be there, smile, clap for her toast, eat a cupcake, and dip out early. Everything was fine until my mum pulled me aside to check how I was feeling. She knew how rough this pregnancy had been so far, and I appreciated her concern. We stepped into the hallway for privacy, and I let myself vent for maybe 2 minutes about the nausea, the migraines, the weird food aversions. You know, pregnancy stuff. But Natalie heard us. I didn't even see her at first. She burst out from behind a corner like a soap opera villain. Her eyes were wild, voice high-pitched and shrill. You couldn't even wait one day, could you? I blinked. Wait for what? To steal my moment. To tell everyone you're pregnant at my engagement party. My mum and I both froze. I tried to explain that we weren't telling anyone. That we told our parents a while ago. That this conversation was private. But Natalie wasn't having it. She launched into a full meltdown, accusing me of being jealous, needy, incapable of letting her shine. People started looking. I could feel eyes on us from every direction. I felt like I was shrinking into the carpet. Natalie stormed off, and I was about to leave too, but my mum, bless her, begged me to stay. Said we'd just smooth things over later. That maybe Natalie was just emotional. I agreed. against my better judgment. And that's when the real nightmare started. Maybe 30 minutes later, Natalie came back to me. Big smile on her face, like nothing had happened. Said she wanted to show me something cool in the basement, some childhood keepsake she'd dug up. I should have known better. I should have walked away. But I followed her. As soon as I stepped into that basement, she slammed the door behind me and locked it. I stared at the door, thinking it was a prank. I knocked once, then twice. Natalie? She didn't answer. She just laughed. Loud, high, and cruel. Consider this payback, she said, for trying to ruin my engagement. I waited for her to open the door. She didn't. She walked away. And that's when the panic hit. It was cold, dark, smelled like old paint and must. My stomach turned partly from the pregnancy, mostly from fear. I tried to stay calm, but the nausea came in waves. I paced, trying to figure out how the hell I'd get out. That's when I noticed the window. It was small, but maybe big enough. I found a plastic bin and dragged it under the sill. My arms were shaking. I was dizzy. My foot slipped and I fell hard. I landed on my side and my stomach. The pain was immediate and brutal. I couldn't breathe. I just laid there, paralyzed by fear. I held my belly, whispering, "Please be okay. Please be okay." I felt like the world had stopped. I don't know how long I was down there, maybe 45 minutes, maybe longer. Eventually, I heard my husband calling my name. His voice was frantic. When he unlocked the door and saw me on the floor, his face went white. He didn't even speak, just lifted me gently, helped me into the car, and drove straight to the ER. The entire ride, I kept thinking, what if this is it? What if that stupid fall ended everything we fought so hard for? At the hospital, they rushed me in for an ultrasound. I didn't breathe the whole time. Miraculously, the baby was okay. Barely. The doctor said it could have been worse, that if I'd hit the ground harder, things might have turned out differently. I was so relieved I almost couldn't cry. My husband, though, he was furious. He called my parents immediately, told them everything. We'd left the party so fast, no one had known why. But now they did, and all hell broke loose. Apparently, when my parents confronted Natalie in front of everyone, she played it off as a joke. Just a little prank, she said. But my dad wasn't buying it. Not this time. He made an announcement right there. They were pulling the funding for her wedding and honeymoon. Done. Over. Natalie lost it. She screamed that I ruined her life, that I did this on purpose, that I was evil. My mom tried to mediate, but my dad stood firm. This isn't just petty jealousy anymore, he told her. This is dangerous. They left the party early. And now? My phone hasn't stopped blowing up. Natalie's calling me every name in the book. My mom keeps asking me to convince my dad to reconsider. And I'm just trying to stay sane and pregnant and safe. I don't know what comes next, but this was only the beginning. After the ER visit, I spent 2 full days in bed, physically exhausted, emotionally wrecked, and still trying to process what had happened. Natalie locked me in a basement. I fell. I could have lost the baby. That's not a prank. That's not going too far. That's unhinged. And yet, somehow, she still thought I was the villain. The messages started pouring in before I even made it home from the hospital. First, it was Natalie pages of texts that swung wildly between, "You're so selfish too. This is all your fault too. I hope you're happy." She didn't apologize. Not once. In fact, she doubled down. Then came my mum. She wanted me to talk to my dad. "He's just angry," she said. "You know how he gets when he feels cornered. Natalie didn't mean for you to get hurt. You know that." But I didn't know that. Because Natalie's never had to deal with consequences. Ever. I told my mum gently but firmly that I wasn't going to intervene. Not this time. I wasn't going to beg on Natalie's behalf. Not after everything. She paused for a beat. Then she said, I just don't want this to tear the family apart. Too late. What followed was radio silence from me and a full-on smear campaign from Natalie. Apparently, when she realised I wasn't going to play peacemaker, she took things up a notch. She started telling extended family that I faked the whole thing, that the fall wasn't real, that I exaggerated the hospital trip to get sympathy. She even claimed I was lying about being pregnant. Let that sink in. I'm 3 months pregnant. I have ultrasound photos, ER records, and more lab results than I know what to do with. And she's telling people I made it all up to sabotage her wedding. The worst part? Some of them believed her. An aunt reached out to check on me, but halfway through the conversation asked, So, are you actually pregnant? Like for real? A cousin texted my husband with, Hey man, I don't want to stir the pot, but Natalie's saying you guys staged all this. That true? I lost it. Not outwardly. I didn't scream. I didn't clap back on Facebook. I just quietly blocked every person who even entertained that kind of garbage. My husband, though, he was livid. Said if anyone else accused me of lying again, he'd start mailing out copies of the ER discharge paperwork himself. And I believed him. 2 weeks after the party, I was starting to feel human again. We were getting back into a routine, going to prenatal checkups, prepping for the second trimester. I started thinking, maybe it's over. Maybe she finally realised this wasn't a game. I was wrong. One afternoon, I heard loud knocking at the door non-stop, like the person on the other side had no sense of shame or self-preservation. I looked through the peephole. Natalie. My husband said, Don't open it. I hesitated. Against my better judgment, I opened it just a crack. She pushed her way in. Immediately, the yelling started. How could you do this to me? You ruined everything. My fiancé's parents are backing out. The wedding vendors are cancelling left and right. And you're sitting here like you did nothing wrong. I tried to stay calm. Natalie, you locked me in a basement. Her face twisted. It was a joke. You're so dramatic. You always twist things to make me look bad. I pointed to the coffee table. That's our baby's first ultrasound. You almost took that away from me. She turned, saw the framed photo, and before I could move, she picked it up, threw it to the floor, and stomped on it. Then she tore the picture in half. I froze. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. My hands were shaking. My stomach dropped. And then she said it. I hope you lose that baby. Then maybe I can have my life back. Everything went quiet. My husband rushed into the room. He didn't yell, didn't touch her, just stood between us and told her to leave. She did, but not before slamming the door so hard the frame shook. I sat on the floor and cried for what felt like hours. Ugly, gasping sobs. All the strength I'd been clinging to just cracked open and spilled out. That night, we blocked her number on everything. My husband even got a call forwarding app so she couldn't use unknown numbers to get through. I thought that would be it. But she found new ways. She started texting my husband's phone from fake numbers, sending messages like, How can you be married to someone so selfish? And your kid is going to be just like her, manipulative and cruel. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I felt like if I gave her even an inch more of space in my life, she'd try to destroy it completely. Then my mum called. She sounded shaken, said Natalie had shown up at her house in full meltdown mode, sobbing, rambling about how I ruined her life. Said she had nothing left, that her fiancé was thinking of calling off the wedding, that no one was on her side. And you know what? my mum finally saw it. She told me, I don't know what's wrong with her, but this isn't just wedding stress. This is something deeper. Something's broken. She paused and then said something I never expected. I'm sorry, Marissa. The first should have stood up for you sooner. I didn't know what to say. I just cried again. Not out of pain this time, but relief. It felt like someone had taken the weight of guilt I'd been carrying and just lifted it off. A few days later, my mum called again. She sounded different, angrier, tighter. Apparently, after their conversation, Natalie had stormed upstairs and trashed my old bedroom, broke trophies, tore up childhood certificates, ripped photos off the walls. My mum was devastated. That room had been her little time capsule, something she'd kept intact even after I moved out. And Natalie just wrecked it. That was the final straw. My mum told her to leave and not come back. She called me afterward and said, "Your sister needs help, but you don't owe her anything. Not your time, not your silence, not your peace." My dad, he hasn't spoken to Natalie since the night of the party, and he says he doesn't plan to, at least not for a long while. As for Natalie's fiancé, he left her. He texted me a few days later, just a simple message. "I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve that." I didn't reply. At this point, I'm trying to move forward, to stay healthy, to protect the tiny life growing inside me, and to finally put myself first. But I know this isn't over yet. With Natalie, it never is. After Natalie destroyed my childhood room and my parents finally cut contact with her, I thought that might be the end. You'd think anyone would take that as a wake-up call, but not Natalie. She always had this way of convincing herself she was the victim, no matter how bad she behaved. And now, with no wedding, no fiancé, and no financial help from my parents, she unravelled fast. At first, it was quiet. A few peaceful weeks passed. My belly grew, the morning sickness started to ease, and for the first time since the engagement party, I slept through the night. My husband and I even dared to start decorating the nursery. Then Natalie started creeping back in. It began with a message from an unknown number. The wording was disgusting, full of insults about me, my baby, my marriage. But what stuck with me most was the last line. "You think having the first grandchild makes you better. You think you won. I'll make sure everyone sees who you really are." I blocked the number. Again, I told myself it was a last gasp, that she'd eventually give up. I was wrong. The next blow came from the most unexpected place, my husband's mother. She called us one morning, clearly shaken. She'd gotten a letter in the mail. Yes, a physical letter. No return address, just typed accusations and vague threats. It said I was unstable, that I wasn't fit to be a mother, claimed I had violent episodes, and neglected my unborn child. It hinted I'd already put the baby in danger, once a reference, I guess, to the fall in the basement. My mother-in-law is no fool. She knew immediately it was Natalie. She recognised her writing style even though it was typed. She was horrified mostly at how specific it was, like someone had been watching us. We reported the letter. It didn't lead anywhere. Anonymous threats are hard to trace. But it was enough for me to sit down with my husband and say, "I can't do this anymore." We'd talked about moving before. His parents live in a quiet town 2 states away, surrounded by good schools, nature trails, and most importantly, no Natalie. It had always been a someday plan, but suddenly, someday turned into now. We didn't announce it. We didn't tell friends. We barely told family, just enough to say we needed space and peace before the baby came. My parents were heartbroken, especially my mum, but they understood. My dad even helped us pack. We moved in 3 weeks, new house, new town, new start. And for a while, it really did feel like a fresh chapter. No more texts, no more phone calls, no whispers from cousins who believed her lies. Just quiet, peaceful quiet. Until, of course, she found a new target. Natalie started stalking her ex-fiancé. I found out through a mutual acquaintance, one of those family friends who somehow always knows everything. She told me Natalie had shown up at his new apartment twice, left voicemails, emails, even dropped off a handwritten letter apologizing, then blaming me again for everything. He filed for a restraining order. She violated it within a week. That was the last straw for everyone. My parents finally said they wanted nothing more to do with her. They went full no contact, told her not to show up again, not to call, not to reach out through other people. I think it broke my mum's heart all over again, but she didn't fight it this time. Natalie's gone quiet since then. I don't know where she is, and honestly, I hope I never find out, because a few weeks ago, something amazing happened. I gave birth. Our son, our perfect, healthy, bright-eyed little boy, came into the world after a long labour that I'd do all over again just to meet him. He's everything I ever hoped for. He sleeps with his arms up like he's already surrendering to dreams. And his laugh feels like a reset button on my whole life. When I held him for the first time, everything that happened, the party, the basement, the fall, the screaming, the broken picture frame, it all felt like another lifetime. I looked at my husband and said, "We're safe now." And we are. My parents came to visit a few days later. My mum cried when she held him. Not just because she was happy, but because she knew everything it took for him to get here. She apologized again for everything she didn't see, didn't do, didn't say when she should have. I didn't need her to, but I think she needed to say it for herself. They stayed for a week, cooked us meals, held the baby while I napped, and didn't bring up Natalie once. It was the first time in years I felt like I actually had a family. Real family. People who show up, protect, love without strings or scorekeeping. I still get waves of guilt sometimes. Wonder if I should have done more, said more, been the bigger person. But then I remember the locked door, the fall, the words she screamed, and I remember my son's face. I didn't win anything. There were no grand takedowns, no social media call-outs, no big public revenge. I just left. I walked away. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. Thank you to everyone who read this. Writing it out helped me make peace with it all. I don't know what Natalie's future looks like. And honestly, I don't want to. Mine is here in this quiet home with a crib in the corner and love that doesn't ask me to disappear. And that's enough. That's finally enough.